All right. Well, good evening, everyone. We're off to a little bit of a late start, but I'll bring the meeting to order. It's 6:43 by my clock. Before we begin, I need to read the electronic meeting disclosure, if I can find it here. All right. This meeting is being recorded. The meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Enosburg Falls is being conducted electronically in order to ensure the safety of all attendees and to maintain compliance with Governor Scott's executive order. Per H681 signed into law on March 30th, 2020, Section 6, there's a temporary suspension of designated physical meeting location requirements of Vermont's open meeting law, BSA Section 312. In order to ensure that all attendees can hear clearly, your audio may be muted. When you wish to speak, you can raise your hand in the participant list or by submitting a chat request, or if you called in by pressing *9. Once acknowledged by the chair, please clearly state your name and then proceed with your question or comment. Please remember that when unmuted, all participants can hear any sounds in your environment. Again, this meeting is being recorded. All right. So before we begin, I need to take a roll call. We have some new faces here to the staff of the board. Eli's a little late, but he'll be joining us later. So Leonard, are you here?
Yes,
Sandy?
I'm here.
Heather?
Here.
All right. And we'll catch up with Eli whenever he jumps in.
I think he just showed up. He's right now. Can you hear us, Eli?
Looks like we got it on.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Looks like Eli's here. So first up, we have modifications and changes to the agenda. Does anybody have anything they need to add or change tonight?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll move on to public comment. Is there anybody here from the public who wishes to speak tonight? If so, please raise your hand. Joseph?
Yes,
Joseph, you're on the agenda as an item.
Okay, I wasn't sure, but I'm from the public and I do want to speak. So I'm on the agenda, so I'll wait my turn.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm with Joseph. I just want to make sure that that's clear. I'm not just here for something else.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are coming up in a little bit.
Okay, good.
All right. So hearing no one from the public, we will move on to review and approval of minutes for May 11th, 2021. Did everyone get a chance to look those over?
Mhm.
And if there are no errors or omissions, I will hear a motion to accept them.
I'll make the motion.
Heather
I'll
had the
second
first. Sandy with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right, that's unanimous. Up next, Vital Village Scoping Study Engineering Contract Amendment.
So Chris Sargent from Dubois and King Engineering was going to attend tonight. I saw 2 emails come in saying he also was having trouble linking into the meeting as Eli was. I don't know, Ken Santamore, if you can follow up with Chris or not. I don't have a phone number for him handy, so I don't know quite what to do for him. But why don't we just continue on with this agenda item? You've got materials in your packet. You have a contract amendment from Dubois and King that would extend the length of the contract from July 31st until October 31st. The request for this extension is a result of a meeting that the management team for the Vital Village Scoping Study had earlier this month, in which we discussed the public feedback we got from the April 28th meeting that we had on the alternatives part of the scoping study project. As all the board is aware, we had I would say a very hearty, sometimes feisty discussion with the public about the scoping study. There were mixed reactions about it. Some people liked it, some people did not like it. But it seemed to the management team at the conclusion of our meeting earlier this month that we probably needed to take some additional public outreach steps in order to try and make sure we're doing this right and we're doing everything that we can within the time and budget allotted in order to, get everybody's ideas and perspectives on the table. So attached to the contract amendment, you will also see a revised schedule going forward that Chris Sargent from Du Bois and King had put together with the scope of work for each month covered under the months we would have remaining under the amended contract, taking us through until October 31st. So the main thing is we would be doing an extended public outreach effort by survey, by website survey, that will take some extra time in order to get that set up, allow people to respond to that survey, and then allow Du Bois and King to take the results of the feedback we get under that survey and compile it into useful information. So we'll be trying to gauge, what the preferences are, not only in the three alternatives that were presented to the public at the April 28th meeting, but also to try and allow the public to also give some expressions of deviations within each of the alternatives. So for example, you might like parts A and B out of one of the alternatives, and then parts C and D out of a second alternative. And also try to allow for people to have feedback in that way as well. This seems to me and the rest of the management team the most prudent way to move forward with this, given some of the feedback we got at the April 28th meeting. We will also have Chris Sargent come in and do a presentation at a regular board meeting. So not a special meeting like we did on December 3rd and April 28th, but as part of a regular board meeting. Chris Sargent alone said he would be willing to come in and give a presentation to the Board of Trustees and whoever else wanted to attend, obviously, at that meeting, to sort of give like another midway presentation to the board about how things were going and what the results of the survey look like. So all of those things will take a little bit extra time. This is the schedule that Chris put forward. It's still well within the allotted time that we were given by VTrans under the grant that we received from the state of Vermont to complete this scoping study project. They had given us until January of 2022. So even if we end up, extending this until October 31st, we're still within the state's allotted period to complete this project. So I and the rest of the management team for the scoping study would like to recommend to the board that you approve this amendment to the contract, which would extend it until October 31st, and also bring in some other work and efforts into the project at no additional cost. There's no additional cost that Du Bois and King is asking in order to do this, this further public outreach regarding the scoping study. So try and answer any questions if you guys have any, but that's the request. And sorry, Chris Sargent wasn't able to get himself logged in here.
Alan, you have your hand up?
Hi. Just two things. I wonder if there would be any budget of time or for someone to reach out in person to stakeholders about completing the survey? And is it anonymous? Is there a place where you put who you are? Just because I know that we've done these before for different things, and judging by the tone of April 28th, just, how we can follow up as equitably as possible with everybody who wants to be heard.
Don't know about, going to people directly. That seems a little bit difficult. I mean, I don't know that we really have the manpower to go around and knock door to door on everybody's home. I mean, remember, this is not just for businesses, this is for the entire community, all of the residents of the village of Enosburg Falls. We could ask Sean at Cayo if he is willing to go knock on downtown business doors. He's done that twice before on these other meetings. I don't know what his answer to that would be or not. And regarding the question about anonymity in the surveys, I'm not sure. They haven't actually created the survey yet. We're still talking about all the different changes that we need to do to the website, and the concept had been that the survey would be available on the Vital Village webpage. We would also put up physical posters in the downtown area, and we're talking with people associated with the Pearly Block to see if we can get the windows there cleaned up and put posters in, the vacant storefront of the Pearly Block building. So that would be, right on Main Street, very, very visible, as an alternative to the suggestion that was made at the April 28th meeting to have us put up kind of like billboard type signs on Lincoln Park, updating people, where we are with the process and showing the different alternatives, putting up physical pictures of the different alternatives that Du Bois and King had put together as part of the scoping study. So we did talk about that. It did not seem like there was any money in the budget to do something that extravagant, but we came up as an alternative to that. We came up with the idea of, well, we could do, just some simple paper posters, maybe put them up in the Pearly Block windows with additional text and information and instruction to the public to go on to the Vital Village website, to log on, take the survey that will be on the website, and give people approximately 4 weeks in order to do that. So it's not something that would only be up for a few days or a week. We would give people a full month to respond to the survey and have the posters up downtown as well. So that would give additional advertisement. Sandy, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I believe we have spoken with Mr. Mraz about putting the posters inside the closed pharmacy. The outside of the windows have already been done. Dan and I did them Saturday, and we're going to do the inside maybe even Friday this week, I'm not sure. So, and I think we're trying to get, I hope we're trying to get the original posters that Greta had the last time I knew. They were pretty good sized, and we had them in the window once before. So we have those, and then if we need to have new ones, we can.
Yeah, these would be brand new ones that Du Bois and King have
They would
created.
provide.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've actually already received them. Last week, they did whole new text giving, explanation and instruction to people that are, going by, looking at the posters in the window, and requesting that they go log on to the Vital Village website and please take the survey that's on that website. And they did new, much larger depictions of the 3 alternatives that were presented at the April 28th meeting, and also added more text into the physical depictions to give further explanation to the public as to why certain things are set up some certain ways, within each of the alternatives. And they did that work that last week. I received those posters just this morning in the mail, so I have them in the office here.
I have a number of easels if we need them. I have like a
Yeah,
dozen.
I was thinking we were just gonna put them right on the window.
Okay, we can tape them on.
Yeah, we were thinking about just taking like clear packing tape, not Scotch tape, because I don't think that'll last very long, but packing tape, I think, will last a month. Just get it clear so it's barely visible at all. And yeah, we've got some too, and yeah, we've already had a couple of staff members volunteer to go up and do that when we're ready to put the posters up in the windows.
I think Ellen brought up a good point about just like making when you're looking in ways of advertising to people, or letting them know that there's multiple ways for people to obtain that information, because not everybody's going to be walking on Main Street. And also they might not have the internet access, just speaking from experience trying to get people to do online surveys. So if there's ways of even just reminding them, hey, we have Wi-Fi at the park, or go to the library, it's open, fill out a survey here, you can go there and do the survey. We just need to make sure that we're trying to approach people in as many ways as possible, and making it as accessible as possible.
Okay, yeah, we also have to be aware of the budget, which there isn't really. I mean, we're at the end of funds here, everything is spent. But I can bring this up to Du Bois and King and ask them, if there's I'm not sure, maybe, I think what you're asking for, Heather, is physical surveys to be circulated around the community.
That would be phenomenal.
So that's a whole other, that's a whole other system that we would have to create to, collect those surveys, put them into some kind of, mailing system where Du Bois and King, someone would have to be responsible for collecting all those physical surveys. Then it gets a lot more complicated that way.
Totally understand. Yep. Yeah. Physical
But
surveys would be awesome, but also just like in the other venues of like making sure that it's on Facebook and if Front Porch Forum, and then at the library and other places. QR codes also are really helpful too, because like people can just scan the QR code and it brings them right to the survey, and you can do that for free. But just again, from experience and trying to get people to fill out surveys, just not everybody's in the same spot.
Yeah. So Chris Sargent has just logged on. Chris, let me just quickly get you up to speed. We're in the midst of talking about the contract extension. I gave them a brief, everyone in the meeting, a brief update as to the discussions that we had at our last management team meeting earlier this month, and what came out of that discussion and the reasons why we're asking for the contract amendment. And there have been a number of questions from people in attendance asking about the survey in particular, and ways in which, and I guess expressing concern that we do everything we can to do as much public outreach with the survey as possible. And it sounds like people are saying they're concerned that just putting it on the Vital Village website is, and having it advertised in the windows on the Pearly block are not going to be enough. So that's kind of where we are with the conversation. I don't know if you have anything at this point you would like to say, any feedback to that you would like to give, but if you do, the floor is yours.
Thanks, John. My apologies for being late. I was having trouble getting into the meeting, so fortunately we
Yeah.
were able to work that out. If I heard correctly, Heather had made a comment about QR codes. We do have them on the posters that I gave you, John, so those will be readily available.
Okay, great.
I would agree. We need to look to, as consultants, we always look to the town to push anything out via Front Porch Forum or Facebook. I can't get in there and do that for you folks. So that's something you have to do. And, it's simply you can copy some of the material that we've given you guys to use to update your website, put that in a Front Porch Forum post and just say, this is happening. Here's the link. There are posters downtown if you want to look at them, and, basically do what you can to kind of push it out, and other folks too, because, nobody knows who I am, but everybody knows who you folks are because you guys are neighbors. So you're the best people to tell other people that this is happening and what's going on. And the posters that we've provided, John, will hopefully answer some questions sort of about the general process. It seems like one of the things we've realized is that there's confusion, just not understanding that the scoping phase is one of 4 phases really to go from visioning, which is what the Vital Village project was, to actually building streetscape enhancements. And it's the second of 4 phases. And we've got some of that information on the poster too, which I hope will help people better understand that continuum. And otherwise, we just want to say that we support the delay in not trying to push this, because it's better. People voiced a concern that they weren't getting enough information, and this is the opportunity to do that. And we've provided John with what he needs in order to be able to kind of help get the word out. And we'd rather wait another month to kind of get going on finalizing alternatives with more information from people and more feedback, than try to push it through, because in the end, this is all about, these things need support from the public. Any questions for me?
I saw a number of hands raised. I think Ellen, you had yours up first.
I totally understand that doing paper surveys is a whole nother thing. I think that literally like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper under one of the posters that says internet is available, free Wi-Fi in the park, or go to the library and they can help you. Like, that doesn't, it costs 1 sheet of paper, and it at least does like help people who might have an internet barrier. I fully understand why a paper survey is too complicated, but making sure that people understand the internet options is a good idea, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Eli, did you have something?
Yeah, I got just a quick question, I guess. If we're putting posters up in the windows of the store, what would it take to photocopy a few extras and, give them to the other businesses on Main Street so they can say, hey, you guys should participate in this survey while you're in my store, something like that.
They're 2 foot by 3 foot posters, so they're kind of big.
Well, they're big posters, but there could be a downsized version of that on an 8.5 by 11 fairly
Yeah,
simply.
indeed. And we've sent a digital copy of it to the town too, so absolutely they could be printed.
Right. I don't think that would take much, and probably businesses around town offer free internet service too, So, hey, while you're here, fill this out.
Absolutely. So John, do you have just a summary sheet that you could print off and maybe give to business owners if they request it to hang up to get the word out?
Well, no, there's not really just a summary sheet. This is a lot of material showing all of, you kind of have to look at it all together to understand it. There's several posters in there. I haven't actually even really looked at them in great details, the physical ones that Chris sent over. I just got them this morning, but I have looked at them on the internet because he, as he mentioned, he sent over electronic copies of this as well. But there's not like, you know, one 8 by 11 inch, you know, page size sheet that's going to have all this information compiled on it. I think it's probably too much in order to do like that. That's my sense anyway.
John,
But maybe one could be created that just gave, you know, like maybe just has one photograph on it or something with some basic text that had 2 or 3 paragraphs if this is something the board feels is a priority.
You know, John, we might be, let me check with our team and see whether they could, you know, quickly pull information out of the posters we developed to create a really quick summary. It might be something they can do within, you know, half an hour and get you something that's a little more manageable size wise. I'll follow up with you tomorrow on that, if that works for you.
Okay, sure.
I think that would be great if we can just get something with some general links, maybe a QR code and brief description of what we're doing. And we can hang one up at the village office at least, and maybe contact the library or and other local businesses, see if we can get one of those out. But also like what Alan said, I think just a sheet, you know, another little note memo that says that there's Wi-Fi at these locations to access the survey. That would be helpful as well.
Yeah, I think I get the gist. You're asking for like a flyer type of thing
Yeah, just something
to be done that's just quick and dirty.
Yep.
You know, got like 1 or 2 little photographs on there to get people's attention and has, you know, like 2 paragraphs just saying, hey, check this out. And then you're asking for that to be distributed as well to all the businesses in the downtown. Is that what I'm understanding?
I would
Yeah,
say
not
it's
really. I
get
mean,
to.
I guess we could, but that would take a lot of effort. I don't know if it would be something worthwhile just to put one on the village entryway, and then just contact some people downtown and see if they do want to hang them, or
Send me an email. I'll make you some copies.
that works.
I've got a laser printer. It's okay.
Yeah,
think
it's not
we
that
can have out
the printing isn't the issue. It's, you know, it's the time going around and talking
I
with
can do that.
people and get them. Yeah. Is that what I'm understanding though?
Well,
That's
at
what the
April
board is
28th
asking.
meeting, we had a lot of, I guess, negative feedback because some of the Main Street businesses felt they weren't being reached out to.
Mm.
So I think if we made the direct effort to get in touch with those business owners, I think that would be beneficial. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but
I do. I think that as much as we can do to reach out to people, the better.
Just good PR.
all right. So I think we have a game plan. Is there any more questions? All right, hearing none, does the board want to move forward and grant the extension on this scoping study? If so, I'll hear a motion.
I made the motion, we extend it.
Leonard has the first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Heather with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right. Well, thank you, Chris.
Yep. Thanks, folks. Sorry for being tardy, but thanks a
No.
lot for thanks for considering it and moving this along. I think it's good to take the extra bit of time for the community.
Absolutely.
All right. Y'all have a good night now. Thank you.
Thanks, you
You
too.
as well.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, up next, Lincoln Park permit request with Enosburg Falls High School. Good evening, Maggie and Joseph.
Right. Hello, everyone. I'm back again this year with a similar request to last year, but I have an additional piece of agenda. So as you all know, we've been operating under the health and safety guidelines as outlined by the officials in Montpelier, both our governor, our Secretary of Education, Dan French, and also Dr. Levine's guidance around health and safety. And so our preference for Plan A is to hold graduation this year in Lincoln Park versus in the high school. The high school would be Plan B in the event of rain, but we are asking you to consider our request to have graduation, senior class graduation 2021 in Lincoln Park on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock on June 12th, sorry. And I brought Maggie Cavazos, our senior class advisor, along with me tonight, and she can go over some of the details. I'm also here tonight on behalf of Rachel Reynolds, who is the middle school principal, who's just back this week recently from being out on maternity leave. And so she could not join us because she's the major food source for her newly born daughter this evening. And she said that she didn't want her screaming in the background for food. So anyway, I'm here on Rachel's behalf as well. Rachel would like to ask all of you to approve of her very small 8th grade having a graduation the night before on the premises of Lincoln Park. The tent and the seating will all be set up in advance of our graduation the following day. She just wants to know, could she use the park to have her hour-long 8th grade transition graduation as well? So we are also asking for your guidance and permission on repeating the very successful parade that we had last year that follows the traditional parade route that they have on Dairy Days. And many families and townspeople were so excited to have that parade last year. It was a huge success. Given the fact that Dairy Days didn't happen, people came out in droves all around the parade route to celebrate the graduation of our seniors. They really needed something special to celebrate and bring them out of their houses. So we're asking for one, Enosburg Falls Middle School to be able to have their graduation ceremony on Friday evening for 1 hour, like between 5 and 6. And then for Enosburg Falls High School to hold its annual graduation, class of 2021 graduation at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning, the 12th of June. The parade would be, we have it scheduled for 2 to allow for the graduation ceremony, which will be more traditional. We're able to do a more traditional venue this year per Dan French and our governor. So that's why we're here tonight. And Maggie, have I left anything out? You've been a trooper here and really a prime mover in getting things moving for the class of 2021. Any comments from you?
I think I would clarify because I think there were some shifts, some differences in the permit. So in our permit application, we had identified 2 tents going up, I think. And we've actually, Joseph and I have spoken since then, and I think we're only going to try and put up 1. But you'll notice the permit is for a couple of days, and that is because the tent company has requested that they have a little bit of wiggle room around the weather. So they kind of want to avoid putting up a tent in the middle of a rainstorm, which I get. But other than that, I can't think of anything that you have left out, Joseph.
Okay. And the reason why we're having a tent versus many tents, we would like to have people have access to the bandstand and see the speakers give their speeches, and our superintendent and I and other administrators there giving out diplomas and other awards. But the tent is primarily for folks who really could benefit from the coverage. The elderly, people who have difficulty moving around, people who might be sun sensitive. So it's not going to be a huge tent. And as I said, if we get the message that Mother Nature is not going to cooperate with us and we are forced to go inside because of torrential downpours that are predicted that morning, we would move that venue into the auditorium. But we would have to limit the number of guests attending. If we hold it in Lincoln Park on the 12th, then more people can come. Maggie's been working very closely with our community partners, with the Lions Club and the fire department. And so the same kinds of barriers that would sort of protect the graduation ceremony event itself would be contained. So we are following the Vermont Forward Health and Safety Guidelines as they currently are written down, because we follow the written guidelines. And we're petitioning you tonight to open your minds and your hearts to let us do this on the 12th in that beautiful park.
Yeah, John, do you have something?
Well, board will see the application in your packet. You also have a memo from me regarding the application. Few things I need to point out to the board. As the board is aware, we actually have a park ordinance. As part of the ordinance, the park use ordinance, there is a certain specified number of days that a person is supposed to put a request in order to use any of the parks. This application did not meet that requirement. There's a 7-day notice prior to the next regular Board of Trustees meeting. The application was received 4 days prior to your regular meeting, which is this evening. I realize, however, that there are political pressures that the board does need to consider because of who the applicant is and the purpose of the request. So therefore, I'm forwarding the application to the board for your review. If you do approve this, you may want to consider in your motion to cite unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic conditions, and that the approval in no way sets a precedence for future park use permit applications. Because this is not just a policy, it's an ordinance, meaning it's law. So you need to just be careful about that. So if you do decide to approve the permit, I would just, as part of your motion, make sure that you cite that this is due to, unprecedented COVID-19 conditions. Didn't know anything about the parade request or the additional ceremony. That's not mentioned in the application. So I guess, board, again, you'll have to decide, whether it's something you want to consider. If you do approve it, I would make the same conditions, citing unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic conditions as the reason for the approval, and that this does not set any future precedents for future park use applications. And then lastly, I would just say that, if they are going to put a tent up, there is a lot of underground infrastructure in Lincoln Park. So contacting DigSafe prior to putting the tent up should also be a requirement of approving the park use application. And then, as the board knows, there are also, you have to consider whether you want to apply fees to the high school and middle school, or also whether you want any insurance liability requirements as part of that, as those are also mentioned in the ordinance. So just some things to think about. Yeah, and just, wanted to get that on the record that, to just be aware of it.
Cindy, did you have a question?
Actually, I had a comment that you have another meeting before the June 12th. So technically it's 15 days before your next meeting.
Well, right, but in order to get on the agenda for tonight, they couldn't wait until the June meeting, because that would be just a couple of days before the event. So in order to get on the agenda for the board, it had to be tonight's meeting, or it wasn't going to work, because to put it off until I think it's like June 9th or something like that is the next board meeting after tonight. I mean, that would be way too close to the event.
Yeah. Okay, so Joseph, one of our main concerns always is liability for the village. Would your insurance carrier cover you for having school events not on school property?
That's something that I don't have the answer to right now in this moment, but I could speak with Morgan Daybell, who is our business manager, and he could provide me with that information. I can get it to Jonathan no later than tomorrow. I also want to thank you, Jonathan, for pointing out that this is an atypical time. We're still operating within a pandemic period. And for the past year and a half, almost, we've been waiting on guidance on a regular basis. Things often seem to be on hold, so we have to come up with plan A, B, and C in order to hold events and things. So we're often waiting for those public announcements from Governor Scott and from Dan French on what we can and cannot do. I just want to point out that our prom committee and our class advisor from the junior class had to wait till the very end. So we just recently had guidance that we could actually hold a prom. And so we were able to reach out into the community and find a wonderful space last Saturday evening. And so we were able to have a prom that closely matched the vision of what the prom committee was hoping for, but also was well within the parameters of the guidelines that were set forth in Vermont Forward, written by Governor Scott and Dan French. So I appreciate that you're even considering this. We were hoping that to be able to offer a ceremony that would include as many family members and family friends as possible. We still can hold this in the school, but it would really greatly diminish the capacity for the number of people who could attend. And so I'm asking you again, these are atypical times. Consider we're still in a pandemic. We're not out of the woods yet. And I would strongly urge you to think about that. And as Jonathan said so well, this is not setting a precedent. We certainly apologize for the late application, but I was also personally out having some surgery, and I had turned over some of the responsibility for this request to others. And this is their first time handling this. So there are lots of extenuating circumstances, and I totally appreciate the constraints that all of you are operating under, especially wanting to be compliant with the ordinance. But I'm also asking you to remember, yes, this is still a pandemic year, and the people who are graduating this year are the future bloom of this community. And I just want us all to remember that. I want to give them a great send off within the health and safety guidelines that we're able to do. The outside venue makes the most sense, and it supports the community coming together in trying times to have something to celebrate.
Samuel, just an additional part that doesn't necessarily address liability, but helps. I've spoken to the sheriff as well about having at least 2, possibly 3 police officers who will be present to help manage the situation, as well as help manage traffic control for the parade afterwards.
Right.
That
We
leaves-
also have a very large portion of our faculty population, our staff, support staff and faculty population who are so excited about this and want to attend and be very much helpful working along with law enforcement to keep this a very safe and healthy venue.
Eli?
Just wondering if we so chose, could we move and make it conditional upon them having the proper insurance coverage so that, there's time. Obviously, we don't have time before the next meeting, but, we can make it conditional upon, approval of insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to, we can make a motion to accept their permit under the conditions that A, they have adequate liability insurance for the event, and B, they contact DigSafe before putting anything in the ground in the park.
That's on my to-do list for Friday.
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable. And I just wanted to bring it to the attention of this group that in the past, which predates my arrival in Enosburg, Enosburg Falls High School graduation was held in Lincoln Park. I was told on 15 different occasions before it was moved back into the high school gymnasium. So you folks would know better than I if that is accurate information.
I had heard that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question, and I'm sorry, Joseph, if you said this. On the parade, is that for this year that you're hoping for, is that the whole parade route before with closed off roads?
Yes, it would be the exact same venue, parade venue we held last year. And the jumpstart of that parade would be held over on Dickinson Avenue in the same way that it was. Maggie has been great with the communication around that. And so it won't be jump started from Lincoln Park. It will be in the same location it was last year. We're working closely with members of the fire department to have fire trucks at the beginning and the end, and following the same parade route that we did last year, which is consistent with what Dairy Day Parade is about.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I've been working with Larry Laurel at Lions Club as well. And the plan is to have students actually park at the high school, kind of in line order so that they can park there, go over to the graduation ceremony, and then come back and just kind of hop in their cars and get ready to go to the parade. And the intention with kind of putting the parade time at 2 o'clock, a little bit earlier, is to, I'm hoping, really, really get those pretty close together so there's not a lot of mingling and milling about. It's just kind of graduation, done, moved cars, parade, and there's not a lot of negotiation that needs to happen.
Okay, so is the parade going to take place on school grounds?
No, it will happen within the community. It begins, Samuel, over at the school itself. So they line up on Dickinson Avenue. So it begins with a fire truck at the head of the parade. And then as people arrive to attend graduation, they will park their cars behind that fire truck as they did last year. And then when graduation is over in the park, they would return to their parked cars and the parade would begin on Dickinson Avenue and follow the traditional parade route that one would see at Dairy Days or last year. And
I
Lions,
apologize, I wasn't aware that was a permit too. Sorry, that's my bad.
last year it was, and Jonathan was very helpful last year in getting that all sorted out for us.
Okay, and so there wasn't a permit for that submitted tonight?
No, I think basically prior to my being out for a bit, having some minor surgery, I contacted Jonathan and sort of planted that seed saying, this may be coming your way again this year. We would like to have the parade the same as we did last year. So we're actually petitioning two things, both graduation in the park and then having parade again this year, the same format we did last year.
Yeah, it's actually three though, Joseph. And there's,
the middle,
although you're correct, you contacted me back in March, which I thanked you for contacting me so early. But then I didn't hear anything from anybody until Thursday,
right,
this past Thursday, about what your guys' intentions were and what you wanted to do.
exactly.
So, I'm just pointing out there isn't anything in this application about the parade or about the second ceremony for the middle school. So, again, that's up to you, board, to make that decision about, if you want to try and fold those two other requests into this permit somehow. The parade isn't really taking place on Lincoln Park though, so you can't, it's kind of hard to fold that into the Lincoln Park permit request.
Right.
That'll just have to be something, I guess, that goes on record that if you do decide to approve it, that, it has to be captured in the minutes that you did approve it and you gave the high school permission to do that.
Right. So because of the success of the parade last year, and because it had lifted the spirits of the townspeople so much, there were things about graduation last year that couldn't happen in a traditional way. But people were saying they enjoyed the parade so much they would like to begin to set a precedence and have that parade every year. And we now know that in a timely fashion, we need to approach you at a much earlier date with a request each year to hold a parade in a similar fashion, because our parents and our stakeholders have asked us to do it. And we like to have good relationships with our parents and our families and our stakeholders.
And out of curiosity, which permit application would that be for a parade? Just so I know for the future.
Well, there isn't really a formal permit application. The last year was the first time anybody ever did that, had a parade for the graduating high school class. So it was something that was just done, if I'm recalling correctly. Joseph had written a letter to the Board of Trustees detailing, exactly what he was asking for the day of the parade, gave a detailed description of the route of the parade, the times that he believed the roads would need to be closed within the village, all those details. And then that was submitted to the Board of Trustees, and they voted on it. And then I think I wrote a follow-up letter in response to Joseph's letter making the formal request, and that's how we handled it. But there isn't a parade application that the village has. Last year was the first time that was ever done, but I guess now you're telling us this is something you want to do every year now. Is that what I heard?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So I guess, we'll have to develop maybe some kind of formal parade application that we can give to you guys and have you fill out on an annual basis.
That sounds wonderful.
Happy to do that.
Okay, so for this year, what I'm thinking of, and tell me if this doesn't work or not, since there was no middle school permit and there was no parade permit, can you get us a permit request for our next meeting?
Absolutely.
We can take care of the high school one tonight. And what I'm thinking of is the tent and everything will already be set up. So it's not like there's any extra required infrastructure for those two permits. So
Exactly.
if you can just get us some paper and we can do that at the next meeting, that would be fine.
So that request by the middle school just came to our attention today. And I said to Rachel Reynolds, the middle school principal, well, your timing on this in one way is good because Maggie and I are going to meet with you tonight, but we'll see if there's any additional things we need to do to get that to move forward. So we're more than glad to provide any additional paperwork or things that you need in addition to the information around insurance liability and all of that. And I'll be seeing Morgan Daybell tomorrow morning at central office. I'm spending the day there with them, and I'll bring this to his attention and said that you folks would really like that information from him.
John?
I'm just, not that I'm shooting down your idea, Sam, but I'm just concerned, Joseph and Maggie, is if the board takes up these two other requests at their next meeting, you realize that's not going to be until, I think it's June 8th or June 9th. So just a few days before your event. Are you going to be okay with that?
Yeah, I think we would plan optimistically that he would approve the applications and come up with a backup plan because, the year of COVID, we have backup plans for our backup plans.
Right.
Could you clarify for me just really specifically so I know exactly what I need to produce? I'm thinking I'll grab another permit application for Lincoln Park for the middle school. And I know where to grab that from. I don't think they want to use the bandstand, so I wouldn't need to fill out an additional one of those, correct?
No, if they're not going to use the bandstand, they don't have to do that one.
Okay, and then for the parade, just kind of a specificity of the route and roads that would be blocked off and the rough time involved.
Right, the date, the time that the parade would be taking place, and approximately what roads, well, not approximately, we would need to know what roads, right, would be closed to the public.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely get that too.
Right.
All right, so if that works for everyone, we'll go with the plan of, I vote we move forward on accepting the high school permit application with the requirements that they have adequate liability insurance and also contact DigSafe. And we'll go forward with that one tonight, and then you guys submit additional requests for the other two events.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, so if everyone agrees with that, I'll hear a motion to accept the permit in that form, also given the current COVID unprecedented times. We're not setting a precedent for any future permit applications.
I
Same,
move we accept.
All right, Sandy has a first. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Leonard with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right, I'll look forward to seeing those other 2 permit requests.
Thank you, Samuel, Jonathan, and all other members of the Board of Trustees. Really appreciate your flexibility and the time you've given us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Have a good night. See ya. Okay. We're a little bit behind on our agenda, so I'm just going to ask everyone to keep everything brief if they can. We'll move on next with a Maple Park permit request from the Enosburg Public Library.
The board has a copy of that application in your packets. No real concerns or comments from staff. Everything seems to be in order and would recommend approval if it is the favor of the Board of Trustees on this permit application.
All right, if there are no questions on the Maple Park permit request, I will hear a motion to accept it.
I'll make,
I'm sorry, there was like 4 at one time. Is there a first?
I think it was Heather.
All right, Heather with the first. Is there a second? Sandy with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right, that's unanimous. Up next, Enosburg Business Association Outdoor Activities Permit Request.
Yeah, so again, a copy of the letter for the EBA Outdoor Activities Permit Request is in your packet. I wrote a short memo as a cover on that. My only real comment about this is, except for last year when the EBA did not submit an outdoor activities permit request because of the pandemic. This is something that, historically the village has always given to EBA. Some changes, though, have occurred over the course of the last year, namely the fact that we have the park use permit ordinance now. And if you read the EBA request, it does not say in here that they would be looking for a separate permit to hold the Harvest Festival in Lincoln Park on Saturday, September 18th. But I think they actually now have to do that because we have the park use ordinance in place. So my only recommendation would be to add that as a requirement in the outdoor activities permit request, is that they also have to submit a Lincoln Park park use permit to hold the Harvest Fest.
I think that sounds like a plan. If all of the board members agree with that, I would hear a motion to accept the Enosburg Business Association Outdoor Activities Permit with the requirement that they submit a separate parks use permit request for the Harvest Fest. We need a motion.
make a motion.
All right, Eli with the first. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Leonard with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Okay, that's unanimous. So one thing that I just remembered, we were talking about the Enosburg High School's permit request. No fee amount came to mind and none was mentioned. I'm going to assume that the permit fee was 0. I don't know if we need a separate motion for that, John.
I don't think you do. That. I mean, you didn't name one, so it wasn't in the motion. But yeah, that was kind of what I was assuming, that you didn't want to charge a fee or liability insurance for the Maple Park permit request.
Yep. Okay.
Or the EBA. But if that's not the case, now is the time to chime in.
If the board's in agreement, we'll just say the liability fee and the parks use fee would be 0 for the high school.
Yeah. And the insurance requirement as well.
Correct. They will supply their own insurance. Okay. All right, so next up, sidewalk project bids.
Gary, you want to kick that off?
Yep. So you got your all your information. We had 2 bids. I had asked 5 different contractors. Received 2 bids from Goodhue Construction and from DCS, which is DeRocha. And Scott Goodhue was low at 53,908. As you see in your packet, we have $51,000 available. But because it's a unit priced bid, I believe that some of these quantities are inflated, so I'm guessing we probably can save, looking at the quantity, we probably could save around $3,000 to $4,000 on the project. So we should be down close to what we are for our monies. And also, I don't know if you want to, but we are making them have a payment and performance bond. And it is Scott Goodhue, and if you wanted to waive that bond, that would probably save us another $2,000 to $3,000. If we didn't make him have a performance and payment bond. It's only a $50,000 project.
So what is that bond for? Gary?
Payment and performance, say he didn't finish the job or he didn't pay somebody, which we've had Scott Goodhue working here forever. He is a taxpayer. I don't think we're really, I mean, I've had jobs we didn't put that in our thing. And if we wanted to reduce the price of the project, if we didn't make him require a payment and performance bond, it may save us $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay, do they get paid when they're awarded the bid, or do they get paid on the completion of the job?
Completion of the job.
Okay, so that, yeah, I think we'd be able to tell pretty
So
soon.
do you want to waive the bond, performance and payment bond?
I don't see a problem with that. I don't know what the rest of the board members think.
It's up to you guys.
I think
mean,
we can waive that.
I don't think we're worried about Scott. I mean, he does a lot of work in town, and it's only a $50,000 project. If it was $1 million project, then maybe I'd say we need that. And it was somebody we didn't know.
For sure. Yeah, I think we can probably waive that.
And I think,
did we need 3 bids for this or no?
well, that's another thing you have to do. We didn't get 3 bids. I had invited 5 different contractors, and I only received 2 people coming up. So you'd have to waive the requirement for 3 bids to accept this.
All right, what does the board think? We go low bid on this one?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Do you have a question, Eli?
I was just gonna say I'm all for going for low bid. I'm just curious which section of sidewalk we're talking about.
Okay, Eli, we're going from here on the intersection of Main Street and St. Albans Street.
Yep.
In front of our office, going up St. Albans Street to Lower Church. And then as you're going up Lower Church and left-hand side up to Pearl. It's about 866 feet of sidewalk. We're replacing the old broken up sidewalk.
Nice. Okay. I just didn't know because first meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to stay ahead of our sidewalks. That way, they're not all crap at once.
Good plan.
Because they're expensive. Okay, if the board agrees, I will hear a motion to accept Scott Goodhue's low bid for the sidewalk replacement at $53,908 and also waive our procurement policy.
And did you want to drop the
Performance and bond. So
Right,
what we'll do is once you find that we've approved that, I'll get a hold of Scott to find out what the actual low bid price is. You have to take that off the top. So it'll reduce this bid price, whatever the cost of that bond is.
Okay, awesome. So we'll say that then. So we'll waive the procurement policy, accept Scott's bid of $53,908, subtract whatever the
Cost of the performance payment bond.
Yep, from that bid. I'll hear a motion to accept that.
I make the motion to accept it.
All right, I heard Leonard with the first. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Sandy with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Okay, all right, thanks, Gary.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next up, we have a no loitering at V-Trans Park and Ride Facility request.
Yeah, so I was contacted by Sam. He was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but I think Sam was contacted by the Sheriff's Department about some complaints that they've been receiving about just, poor behavior, loud noises over on the Park and Ride property. The sheriff's department had expressed to Sam that they can't really do anything because there are no loitering signs on the property. And so in order for the sheriff's department to take any action against the people that are there being noisy, there has to be some kind of signage there on the park and ride property telling people that there is no loitering there. And so in order to do that, we have to contact the state of Vermont. We were told that Jim Coda, who's the maintenance project manager for District 8 V-Trans, which is the district that we are in, that Enosburg is in, needs to be sent a letter, and that letter has to come from the Board of Trustees and must be signed by all the members of the Board of Trustees, making an official request to V-Trans that they put up no loitering signs on the park and ride property. So I drafted up a letter in your packet there. If that seems like it's agreeable to the board, then we can take that and get your signatures on it and send it into Jim Coda. If there are changes that you'd like made to that draft, then let me know and I will get those changes made.
John, did you ever get a hold of Jim and ask him if there's any ordinances to back up that sign if we did install one?
No, I didn't contact Jim, but any ordinances, the state doesn't have any ordinances. The ordinances would come from the village.
Okay. So one of the main concerns that was brought up to me was what legal means do they have to back that sign up, or is it just a sign with no?
Well, they're the property owners. I mean, that's, if the property owner says, I don't want you on my property, you are not allowed to loiter here. I mean, that's it, just like any property owner. If, Village Pizza doesn't want people hanging out in their parking lot on Main Street, they have the same right to do that as well. But if they don't put any no loitering signs up, then there's not really much the police can do if kids are hanging out there at midnight. But if the property owner puts a no loitering sign up on their own property, then that gives the police the right to, tell people, hey, look, there's a sign right there from the owner of this property that you're on, telling you you're not supposed to be here goofing around. Move it on down the road.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say, given the volume of complaints that we've had from loiterers at the park and ride, I would recommend that we accept this.
If there's something else that, I'm not aware of that V-Trans would require, then I guess Jim can tell us that, but the state owns that property. It's their property. And, we can't put any signs up there. We don't have a right to tell the state that they have to have no loitering signs up and they could tell us no. I mean, hopefully they won't do that, but it is their property. And if they said, no, we don't care if people are out there at 1 o'clock in the morning, doing things that they really shouldn't be doing, I guess, if that's the state's position, there wouldn't be a lot we could do about it. But, it is the state. I hope they will be responsible in, trying to take care of an asset that they have, in the community, especially if they receive a letter from our elected officials, the Board of Trustees, requesting that they just put some simple signage up saying no loitering. And that would give the police authority to take action against people that are there doing things they really shouldn't be, that the property was not intended to have done on it.
Ellen, did you have a question?
I just quickly went to the village website under ordinances, and there is something called an objectionable noise ordinance. And I don't know if it's specific only to property that's owned by the village, but there's like a whole lot of stuff of like things that make noise, like et cetera, et cetera. So that is also, I think from previous research that I've done, I think the sheriffs can enforce any ordinance that the town has. So like there is stuff there about unwanted noise. So that aside from like what Jonathan is saying about a private landowner saying you can't be here is also legal, but we also have stuff about noise that's already the law.
Yeah, for sure. Just one of the difficulties associated with that is if there are 10 kids out there revving their cars up, which one of those 10 kids are you going to write the ticket to? So unless you have an officer sitting there, it makes it just kind of difficult. And we'd like to give them another tool that they have at their disposal. And
Yeah, and the noise ordinance, you are absolutely right, Ellen, and that is a tool. But it does have limitations in terms of the hours that it's in effect. So it goes from, it doesn't start until 10 p.m. if I'm remembering correctly, and goes until 6 a.m. So if the noise or disturbance is happening anytime outside of that 8-hour period, then that couldn't apply for police enforcement.
And is that what the complaints have been about, is like noise and other concerning things happening outside of that time frame?
yeah, I guess there's been a lot of complaints from residences, mostly along Pearl Street, about excessive noise, littering, just people hanging out there all hours of the night. So, But yeah. If there are no other questions, I'll hear a motion to accept the letter.
I'll move, we accept.
Andy with the first, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Leonard with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Okay, so we're all gonna need to sign this. So at some point or another, if you have time, swing down to the village office and throw your signature on that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll leave it with Psyche Leach at the front desk. And that way, as you come in, just see Psyche and she'll pull it out and have it ready for you guys to sign. And then once we got everybody's signature, we'll get that in the mail to Jim Coda at V-Trans. Great, appreciate everybody's help with that.
All right, thank you, John. All right, up next, we have manager priority list for 2021.
Thank you, Sam. This is an exercise we go through every year. I just like to formally, have a little discussion with the board about what I understand my priorities are through the year, so that, when something comes up, if it's, regarding one of these issues, I know, that's something I got to get on immediately, that requires my full attention if there's something that needs to be done in one of these areas. The list is not intended to be, an exhaustive or a complete list of all of the issues that I'm working on during the course of the year. I can assure you that that list would be much longer than what you see on these pages, but this is meant to identify what the top, like 10 to 15 priorities for the year are, as you consider them to be as Board of Trustee members, so that I'm aware of what that is. And I also attached last year's priority list on the back of that, just so you could, look at them and compare them, and you'll see some things are not on this year's list that were on last year's list, because we completed those projects last year, so they're finished. But I'll just go down through this, and there is one thing that I noticed I wanted to change on this list for 2021, and I'll explain that to you when we get down to it. But I'll just go down, read the list off to you, and we can talk about whether you feel this is what you want to see on the manager's priority list, or whether there's things you think should be taken off, or whether you think there's things that should be added onto this. So one is keeping on top of the electric department activities and requirements. That's, kind of a day-to-day thing. Every day there are issues that I'm dealing with running our electric department. Some of those issues are local, some of them are at the state level, some are at the federal level. But, every day there are administrative details that need to be taken care of to run the electric department. Also, my duties as a member of the Board of Directors with Vermont Public Power Supply Authority. I am your representative to Vermont Public Power Supply Authority from Village of Enosburg Falls Electric Department and attend all of those board meetings. I'm also on the legislative committee for VEPSA. And so there, while the state legislature is in session, there are some additional duties that I pick up as being a member of the legislative committee for VEPSA, working on electric utility issues at the state level down in Montpelier. I'm also on the NEPA Board of Directors. That is a regional organization that represents all of the public power organizations across New England. So that covers 6 states, Northeast Public Power Association, and I am a representative from Vermont, one of 4 representatives from Vermont on that board. Elm Street Bike and Pedestrian Sidewalk Project, that is currently on hold per request of the Board of Trustees, but at some point that project will come back around again, and when it does, at least it's my belief that that needs to be made a priority. We've got the 2021 road paving projects that'll be coming up shortly. I've been working with Gary Denton to put together the schedule for completing the road projects that we're going to do this year. And then the one change I wanted to make on here is the next item, the wastewater stormwater replacement for Orchard Street and Water Tower Road. That was a mistake. That was actually completed last year. What I meant to put down there is the water and wastewater replacement for Elm Street and Main Street scoping study, which is still going on. We've got Aldrich and Elliott Engineering working on our behalf to complete that study, and Gary and I talk with Wayne Elliott periodically about that project. He's getting closer to done, should be done certainly by the end of this year. I'm hoping by the end of the summer he'll have that done, and then we'll have a pretty good idea about what kind of engineering is going to be involved in that, and also some estimated costs on what it'll take to replace the water and wastewater lines down Elm Street in the northern part of Main Street. And then, of course, we've got the hydro facility FERC relicensing effort. As we've discussed many times, that is a 5-year, or estimated to be 5-year effort to complete our administrative duties to get our hydro facility relicensed by FERC again for another 30 years. And we are currently now in the 3rd year of that effort. So we got estimated at least 2 more years in that. Hopefully it doesn't go beyond that. Certainly don't want to get into a situation like Morrisville has been in, where they're now, I believe, 14 years into their FERC relicensing effort and still don't have it. And have gone to court one time even over it, and are still in negotiations with our state government about trying to get the FERC relicense for their hydro facilities down in Morrisville. It's quite a saga that's going on down there, and in my opinion, a tragic one, but going to do our best to stay out of that kind of situation. We want to see this done as quickly as possible, hoping no more than 5 years for this. Also continuing to work with the Enosburg Initiative Group. My understanding is the board would also like to see that as a priority. We've got the Vital Village scoping study, which came out of the master plan. Guys are familiar with that. Had a discussion earlier tonight about the scoping study and our efforts and trying to move that forward. So that obviously is a priority. Kendall plant control upgrade. We've got some of that done. We had started it last year, but there's still a little bit more we need to do. Olson Electric is working with our line crews to do that. Dave Westcomb specifically, our lead line technician in our electric department. But that does still need to get finished up and should be done this year. We've also discussed an electric department rate increase for 2021. That's not for sure yet. It's something we had discussed during the budgeting process that we may need to consider another rate increase for 2021. Working with Steve Farman from Vermont Public Power Supply Authority, who does all of the rate cases for VEPSA members. And Steve is still evaluating our financial position right now, and we should know a little later in the summer whether he's going to end up recommending that we go forward with another rate increase and what that rate increase might look like. But right now, I know Steve is still doing an analysis of our financial position in the electric department. But if the answer is yes on that, that certainly will become a priority. The hiring of a new director of finance, happy to report that is completed. You guys may not have noticed, but Abby Miller, our new finance director, has been in attendance at the meeting tonight. You haven't turned on your video yet, Abby. I assume that's by choice, but we're happy to see you here. Abby's feeling a little under the weather today, so she told me she didn't really want to say too much tonight. So just wanted to point out though to you guys, if you hadn't noticed, that Abby Miller, our new finance director, is here in attendance tonight. Her first day was yesterday, and we welcome you, Abby.
Welcome, congratulations.
Yes, happy to have you on board.
Thank
Anything you want to say, Abby? We don't want to put you on the spot. But,
no, that's fine. I'm glad to be on board, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone and getting to know kind of all the ins and outs of the village and all the projects that are currently going on.
All right, great. Well, thank you. And then next we had I put down the Pearly Block redevelopment with Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation and the Vermont Community Development Program grant application. As you guys know, earlier this year, the Board of Trustees did approve the village being the applicant on a $500,000 grant application to VCDP to assist with the purchase and planned renovations for the Pearly Block if the grant is successful. And then we've got the COVID-19 state of emergency issues and regulations. This is still ongoing, although things are looking better than they have for a long time since we have been in this pandemic. The pandemic is not over yet. We are still in it, and our governor has not released the state of emergency declaration. So until that happens, we are still in the pandemic, and things are, as I mentioned, getting better. Some of the guidelines and requirements around COVID-19 are loosening up, and I believe will continue to loosen up as the summer goes on, and also as more people become vaccinated in the state. That will help us all get through this terrible situation that we've been living under for the last 15 months or so, and get us closer to being normal. But until that, of course, need to make that a priority, that we're following all of those restrictions and guidelines that our state government has set up for us here in Vermont. And then lastly, the 2021 sidewalk project, which we just had a discussion on with Gary Denton, and making sure that that gets completed this summer. So those were a list of the priorities for 2021 that seemed to me the Board of Trustees would want to see on a manager's priority list for this year. And I am happy to hear any feedback you guys have. If there's something you think shouldn't be on that list, or something else you think should be added that isn't there, I'm all ears. And that's the purpose of this, is just to have a discussion with you guys and make sure the things that I see as priorities, you know, through the course of this year are also the same things you would see as priorities for the manager's position. And if it looks good to you guys, just let me know, and
If anything comes up, I'll let you know.
I'm sure you will.
John, this is a really good list. I have two things that had come to mind. One of them is we had previously voted to include some funds for diversity, equity, inclusion training. So I think that that needs to be on the list. And the way I see and understand diversity, equity, inclusion training is it is definitely an ongoing work. And that goes in along with looking into like contracts and stuff and making sure that, you know, language is gender neutral and stuff as well. So just kind of like ongoing as papers, as items are getting worked on, like making sure that is considered while we're doing our work. The other one is kind of goes back to the Vital Village scoping study that we were talking about. And I think there could be some more work that happens in terms of community outreach, community, like when we share information. We've been starting to do some stuff on Facebook and the occasional front porch forum, but I think it should be considered, we should be doing that regularly for like letting people know about our meetings and just finding the different ways of reaching the community to make sure that the community is part of the village conversations.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Heather?
Yep.
I think that one of the things that could be done that Jonathan wouldn't necessarily have to do totally all alone is that if businesses and residents in the village began to know who Jonathan and the trustees are and get to know all of us a little bit better, that everyone would be a little bit more comfortable about feeling included in some of the things that go on in the village of Enosburg. And I think that would go a very long way in the, you know, whole more flies with honey than vinegar thing. So I think the more everybody gets to know us and know what we do, the better off we are.
I absolutely agree. And that kind of, we had started to do like the biographies for the trustees and with the email addresses. So some of them have been created. We also now have 2 new board members. I think not all of them have been created for even current board members, but maybe if we can make sure that I'm trying to not call you out,
can
but
create
I
a
am.
bio for me. That's fine. Go ahead, Heather.
So yeah, I agree, Sandy, because it is a not all this does need to be with you, John, for that community outreach and stuff, but yeah, make the village more inviting for people, make people know who to contact, and
Yeah, we all need
some
to
people
do it.
do, some people don't. Absolutely.
Okay, so as just kind of a, you know, a heading for this subject, because that's a pretty large subject. Could we call it just community relations outreach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, Heather, and I will add those 2 things to the priority list for the manager for 2021.
Okay, thank you. And John, I have a little bit of information for some DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, workforce training, and I can share that with you at some point.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, did anybody else have any other things to add? If not, we will move on to manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Wanted to give you guys an update on a subject I brought up last meeting concerning a battery storage project that Vermont Public Power Supply Authority is looking into. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update since the last 2 weeks, because there has been some activity with that. So you guys will recall, I did mention this last meeting, and VEPSA has moved forward now with getting out a request for proposals to private contractors on doing a proposed battery storage project for 3 of its different members right now. And they're kind of breaking this down into phases, and eventually would like to hit all of the members of VEPSA. They did 1 phase already last year. They're calling this their 2nd phase. And in this 2nd phase, they're including Lindenville, Enosburg Falls, and Northfield, and are looking to get proposals from private contractors to do a battery storage project somewhere in our service territory. So I also mentioned to you guys last meeting that I had a private meeting scheduled with Ken Nolan, who's the general manager for VEPSA, last week. And Ken and I did talk about some things that, you know, have been going on in his mind about this project. And he, along with Sean Enterline, who also is an employee of VEPSA, told me that they are really kind of looking very favorably at our Public Works garage location on Dickinson Avenue for a potential project to do a battery storage site. Can't say 100% for sure that it would work, but there are some features on the property, such as good access to 3-phase power, that could make that a possibility. There's also some things we might have to juggle around with, you know, some of the storage that's already taking place on the property for the Public Works Department. You know, they've got equipment, they've got gravel piles and sand piles out there, and in order to fit one of these batteries onto the property envelope, we might have to move some things around on there. But from what I can tell, the issues we've been able to come up with appear to be workable. So that's not to say that's the only location in our service territory that VEPSA is looking at, but it seems to be their prime location, the location that they're most favoring right now. So, you know, we'll see what kind of proposals VEPSA gets back from the private contractors that they're soliciting. Ken told me those proposals are due back to VEPSA by June 25th, and that VEPSA staff will then begin evaluating whatever proposals they get back that are submitted to them, and they'd be looking to make some type of recommendation to the individual VEPSA members that are in this phase on you know, what they think would work best given our current sites, our current locations, and the infrastructures we have in our individual service territories sometime in October of this year. So probably be, you know, if they decide that this could be a project that they feel like they could move on in our service territory, I'll probably get back in touch with you again on this subject sometime in October, once I've gotten solid feedback from VEPSA about what the recommendations would be. The next item.
John, hold on. Eli,
Yeah.
you have a question?
I'm just curious. I don't know anything about these battery storage facilities. Like, what's the advantages? What does it do for us, I guess, as a community?
Yeah, so if you're not sure what the battery storage technology is, it's relatively new, and it's developing quickly. I'm no expert on it, and I won't pretend to be an expert on the subject, but what I can give you kind of a basic description of what the technology is and why it may be of interest to our electric utility here. So battery storage technology is kind of a new advanced way of trying to take advantage of power that is generated by renewable electrical sources. So these would include things like solar, wind. I think you could even include geothermal as part of that as well, but probably their biggest applications have to do with solar and wind power. As you guys know, you can't generate 24/7 from any of these renewable resources that I described, which is one of the challenges of trying to use them. You can't generate solar power during the evening or during a cloudy day. You got to have the sun shining in order to generate electric power. And until relatively recently, there has not been a good way to store that power. So it's only available while it's being generated. But recently, within the past few years, there have been some big strides in the technology surrounding battery storage for these types of things. So they've created batteries, just like a charging battery. If you've got a shaver or trimmer that you use, you can plug it in, you put it into your outlet and your socket in your wall. You got a battery inside whatever the device is that you're charging, and then there's a battery inside that device that will hold power, will hold an electrical charge for a period of time, and you can come back later and use that device even though it's not plugged into your wall anymore. So it's just thinking about it conceptually. That's kind of how this works. So you can generate solar power, during a good day when the sun's out, but you've got a battery now that will hold that power for a specified period of time, and then use that electrical generation later when you need it, whether it's in the night or if you're operating under peak hours where, all of your customers all of a sudden are, they've come home and everybody's turning on their AC units and their televisions and their computers and stereos and everything that they use when they get home. And, electrical usage spikes during what are referred to as peak hours.
So it should burden off our electrical grid somewhat, or our system.
Yes, so where this will really be helpful for us is it will decrease the amount of electricity that we need to bring in from outside sources, which will also help lower our transmission costs. Most of the power that our electric utility uses comes from outside sources. We do have a hydro facility, and we generate all of the power that we're able to off from those hydro facilities. But even when everything is going really well and everything is operating at full tilt at the hydro facility, at best we really only get about 15% of our total electric generation needs out of the hydro facility. Everything else we're buying out of the market in some way, and that power has to be brought into our system by what's referred to as a transmission provider. In our case, it's Vermont Electric Co-op. They do this through a switching station, which is located at the end of Birch Lane. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that, but there's a big, some people call it a substation as well. But technically, I think it's really supposed to be called a switching station. But that is the point. That is the station in which Vermont Electric Co-op brings in all of the excess power into our electric utilities service territory that we need that we're not able to generate locally. So this would, having this kind of battery storage technology would also help us reduce our transmission costs, which due to a number of different factors have been going up fairly steeply over the past few years. Not just us, this is happening to distribution utilities, which is the kind of utility we're referred to in the electrical industry. This is happening to distribution utilities all over New England. And some of it has to do with the way that our state structure works and what transmission utilities are allowed to charge DUs. But a lot of it actually is even beyond our state government and has to do with the federal government and an entity that's referred to as ISO New England. And ISO New England has been increasing transmission rates all across New England for quite a few years now. And you know, the old adage, you know what rolls downhill. And, you know, we are at the bottom of that hill. The small electric distribution utilities all across New England. And so all of those added transmission costs ultimately end up at our doorstep. So this battery storage technology, if we were able to bring it online, could help us reduce our transmission costs. And that's, I think, where the real asset is to doing something like this, where the real value is to doing something like this, if we can find a way to make it work for our electric utility.
So I guess the next question is, could that possibly defer the rate increase to our customers if we were to be able to get this thing?
Well, not if it was going to take place this year. No, I mean, this is a project that would, you know, be out probably at least a couple of years if it were to happen. At least that's my understanding. But I know it wouldn't happen this year for sure. So if we were to require a rate increase for 2021, no, this project wouldn't.
Postpone the next one.
It could possibly postpone the next one though. Yep.
That's one way to pitch it to people that might not want a giant battery in the village, I guess, if there's anybody like that.
Yeah, to give you an idea of kind of the, you know, the size of this thing, what, you know, how much space it would need. I was told by VEPSA that we should think about something around the size of a trailer on a semi truck. That's approximately the size, the space that we would need for this battery.
Would it be in its own building or its own separate trailer, or how do they do that? Would we have to build something?
Well, that I think would be on, we need to talk with VEPS about this. We don't have all the answers to this. This is something that they're researching, investigating right now. And that's why they've gone out for proposals to some private companies to go back to VEPSA with ideas about, you know, how these companies would propose to VEPSA they could build something like this in each of the three member utilities that VEPSA has put out an RFP for. So I don't know that we have the answer to that question yet, Eli. I think we'll find out once VEPSA gets the RFPs and communicates to us whether they think this could be feasible or not.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions under the battery storage? Okay, why don't we keep things moving here? Also wanted to give you guys an update on the new phone system. Unfortunately, not great news here. After several months of attempting to make this switch over 100% to the new phone system, we have decided we have to put this project on hold. We have come across a problem we really have not been able to come up with an acceptable solution for. And the issue is, it's hypothetical, but it is a very real problem. And it is something that has happened in the past. So we can't just pretend that this might not happen, because it has happened in the past, and it most certainly will happen again sometime down the road. But the problem is a scenario where we have a power outage and the main office itself also loses power in that outage. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. It's rare, but it has happened, and it certainly will happen again. So under this kind of a scenario, with the new system, because of its ties to the internet, we would lose phone service if we went down with the new phone system in place. And that is unacceptable. We can't have that, especially during a power outage. You know, our lifeline to the community becomes our phone lines. And we can't even understand, you know, where we have outages in different parts of our service territory if people aren't able to call in and tell us where power has gone down. So until we find a solution, if we can, to this problem, we're going to remain on the old system. At least with the old system, there is, you know, a backup plan, and it's reliable, and we understand how it works. You know, we have a 1 hour battery backup under the old system where we wouldn't lose phone service with that battery. And if the outage to the main office extended beyond an hour and the battery started to fail, there also is the ability to revert to a generator if we needed to continue to give additional power to the phone system and at least keep the phone system up and operating, even if, you know, we don't have power to our computers or, you know, our lights in the building or anything else. We have to at least be able to keep that phone system up. So this is a serious dilemma, and until we've been able to rectify that problem, we've made the decision to just go back to the old system and keep using the old system until we can figure this out. We have brought Ken Santamore into the discussion. Ken, as you guys know, is the manager for IT services for VEPSA, but he's also our IT manager as well for the village of Enosburg Falls. He provides that service to us as a member of VEPSA. And so Ken has been also looking at this new problem that's arisen and trying to troubleshoot it and find, you know, a workaround for it. But so far we have not found that workaround, but we'll continue to look at it. And if we can find a way around it, we will you know, start looking at going back to the new system again. In the meantime, because I'm sure you're thinking about this, some of the costs associated with the new system is we've spent $549.50 on equipment, and then we had an additional $3,994.05 regarding the Zoom contract, which is paid up through November 30th of this year. Apparently we prepaid on that. That was something Matt Miner had done during his final months here before he left. And so that money is spent, it's out there. We're not going to get it back from Zoom, but there is an end to that contract that, you know, if we haven't found a solution to this problem by November, then, you know, we don't pay any more on that contract, and we keep looking at seeing if we can find a way to find a conversion to this new system in some way that's acceptable to us.
Maybe
So
storage batteries need to be located on Village Drive in Porter.
We'll put them right on Village Drive, right out front there.
There.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for that bit of bad news. I know that's not what people want to hear. It's not what we wanted to find out either, but I think it's better to be responsible and make sure, you know, that we have a reliable phone system that's up and in place and has backup systems to it that we know how to use just in case that happens, because it could. rather than take the risk and, the new systems in place, we lose power at the main office, and now we're really in a pickle because on top of that, we got no phone service, so nobody can call in. So just wanted to keep you guys abreast of that situation, and we will continue to work on that and try and find a solution. And then lastly, I wanted you guys to be aware that Gary Denton contacted me last week and told me that our paint supplier that does our striping has informed him that there is apparently a white road paint shortage that's going on across the industry right now. This is, a unforeseen side effect of COVID-19 pandemic and some of the problems that, we're having in distribution chain lines and getting product out to our economy and customers across the nation. I don't think this is just in Vermont. I think this is certainly going on regionally and maybe even nationally, where there's a shortage of white road paint. So our supplier is working on that. He could not give Gary a definitive date as to when he would have more white road paint available, but he's told Gary he is working on the problem, trying to get more paint. And as soon as our road striper has that information, he will contact Gary and let Gary know, when we can get white road paint supplies available and when our striper can come in and start doing the striping that we typically do every spring in the community. But just wanted to make you guys aware of that in case somebody asks you guys on the street or something, gee, how come you haven't got the road striping done yet? Usually you guys have that done by now. Well, that's the reason, is because there's a shortage of white road paint going on across Vermont and across New England at least. So Sandy, I saw you had your hand up.
Does that include the same white paint that we use for crosswalks?
Yes.
Or is it, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not good, but thank you.
Yeah, I understand. We weren't too thrilled to hear about that either. It's another unforeseen side effect of the COVID-19 pandemic that has unfortunately materialized in supply chains. And
thank you, Wuhan.
Yeah.
For everything else.
Yeah. So, and that's it for manager's report.
All right, thank you, John. Up next, other business. Does anybody have any other business tonight? I have something real quick. I was over on the Bridge of Flowers and Lights today, and I see that there's just lights, no flowers. I was wondering who is responsible for that. I'm assuming it's us.
Yeah, we're actually, Gary has got some volunteers this year that are gonna help our Public Works Department do plantings over there. From volunteers are from the high school. And he told me they are coming in after Memorial Day. We've had some years where even into late May, we had some deep frosts during the nighttime. And so because of that, Gary's a little bit nervous about planting too early and then having the flowers die. So for the past at least 2 years, maybe even 3 years, we've been waiting till after Memorial Day to do the plantings on the bridge. And then we come in right after Memorial Day and do those plantings. And Gary told me this year he's had some volunteers approach him from the high school that are going to give the Public Works Department a hand in getting those plantings in after Memorial Day.
I don't know if it would be possible for them also to do some power washing over there. It's looking pretty dirty.
Like in the brickwork and stuff, you mean?
Yeah, on the walls and benches and just
On the walls
kinda
and
just
benches
looks a little
too?
affected.
Okay, I'll mention that to Gary, that it can use some power washing all through there. They typically do, in the spring or early summer, they'll go in with a power washer and, try and clean out the weeds that have grown up in between the spaces of the bricks and just try and give everything a good cleaning over, but sounds like they haven't done that yet from what you're reporting. So I will mention that to Gary, that they need to get over there and give it a good cleaning. Thank you, Sam.
All right, does anybody else have anything?
I have
The only-
one question. I'm sorry, Eli, you can go.
I was just gonna say, along the Bridge of Flowers and Lights thing, the old diesel generating plant, they painted it, put new lights outside. A couple of those lights aren't working either.
Okay, you've noticed a couple lights are not functioning right now?
Right,
we-
on the outside of the old diesel electric plant
Yeah,
that they painted, there's one on the Duffy Hill side and then one on the 108 side that don't appear to be functioning.
huh,
They were the last
okay.
time dark.
Because I know they actually just replaced one not long ago, like maybe a month ago, but there's some more that have gone out. I'll have Dave Westcom
We need to
go
look
over
at
there and take a look. Now, just so you know, Eli, they're not supposed to be on all the time.
No.
There's a button on,
Probably, when I went by, it was probably about this time, I'd say, maybe a little later.
yeah. Okay, well, I'll have Dave Westcom take a look at them and make sure, that they are all active, or, if there's bulbs that need to get replaced to do that. But the interior lights are actually supposed to be off unless you go and push the button. There's a button on I guess that would be the south side of the building, the building that faces Duffy Hill, or that
one on each side.
is on the left-hand side of the building. If you're on Duffy Hill Road facing facing the building, I'm sorry, on the left-hand side of the building, there's a button. If you want to look on the inside of the building, that you can push, and it's on an automatic service where you push the button in, the light will come on inside the building, so you can look at the generator even if it's dark out. But that light will go off after, I think, 10 minutes. It'll only stay on for 10 minutes, and then you got to push the button again if you want to look at it more.
Yeah.
But it's not that light. You're saying
No.
it's an exterior light?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to Dave Westcom, have him take a look at it.
Did you have something?
Oh, I just, John, if you could remind me, please, the timeline for the picnic tables.
We didn't have a specific timeline, just that they were going to be put up sometime this summer.
Okay.
I know Ken and Gary have been looking at models. I think Ken may have even put in an order for them yet, but I don't know what time they would be received. If you like, I can have Gary give you a report on that at your next meeting.
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Okay.
I noticed the water in the park. That looked nice.
Pardon, Heather?
The water in the water in Lincoln Park was up. I
Oh,
noticed
yes.
that was
Yeah.
like,
Drinking fountain working?
I don't know. I think that, didn't we discuss
in the morning.
not turning the drinking fountain on this
I
year?
thought we discussed not last year, but this year.
We talked about the fountain. Maybe we did talk about it last meeting. Maybe I was confused that it was the fountain, not the drinking.
yeah, I don't.
Well,
We
the
definitely
fountain we had on last year as well. But the drinking fountain, because of the pandemic, last year we did not turn on because we didn't want to encourage people to, go put their mouths close to the drinking part of it, the well. I thought we had said we would do that again this year, but was my memory wrong? Is the board saying they want the fountain, the drinking fountain, on this year?
Yeah, I don't remember discussing leaving it off. I don't know. I don't know what the board thinks, but
I feel like
You don't actually touch it when you're drinking out of it.
right, I don't have an issue with turning it on. People want to fill water bottles or whatnot, that's fine by me.
We've got nice potable water. It would be good to let people be able to use it.
Okay, so you're saying turn the drinking fountain on?
I
I'll-
am.
I'll- Okay, I'll talk with Gary and let him know that if he hasn't turned the fountain on yet, that the board is asking for it to be turned on.
Gary's gonna have a lot to do next week. All right, anybody have anything else? All right, so I will hear a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations in which premature public knowledge may compromise the position of the municipality.
I'll make the motion.
Heather has the first, or second.
I'll second it.
Sandy with the second. All those in favor of going to executive, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, we'll head over. Ken, are you pulling us all individually, or is there a breakout room?
Yes, there is a breakout room and I'm going to assign it right now. I will pause recording first.
All right, all the board members have returned from executive session. There was no action taken as a result. If there's no other business tonight, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I heard Sandy with the first. Leonard, did you second?
Okay.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, good long meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Good
All right,
evening.
have a good night, everybody.